Here's, chap- Here's Flanders Friends, Chapter 5, entitled Woods. As soon as he entered, he felt better, and the overhanging trees made him feel safe and secure. He stepped carefully over rubbish bags and an old fat felled tree. A cat shot out in front of him and made him drop his books, and he bent down to pick them up, and as he did so, he thought he saw a figure behind the trees. Tim walked over hesitatingly. The last thing he wanted was to face another bully or an escaped convict. His imagination was now going into overdrive. The man in the bushes was a lot older, with short cropped grey hair, and he was dressed in army clothing which looked quite old and tatty. This struck Tim as a little odd. Maybe he's a tramp, he thought, and he hoped the man was harmless. Hello, he said to the man, scattering a few crows in the process. The man was still half behind the trees, and he looked scared, and his face was ashen. Just as Tim got closer, he could make out a large bruise on the man's forehead. He must have fallen down, thought Tim, concerned. The man stepped out to greet him. Hello there, he said softly as he stood with his cap in his hand. He seemed a little nervous as Tim reached out to shake it. The man's hands were frozen cold. What's your name? Asked Tim a little earnestly. The man shuffled as if reluctant, and then he responded. Arthur, he said, raising his voice. I'm on my way to school, said Tim, with false enthusiasm. He didn't want to give a poor first impression. What are you doing? He asked the man somewhat rudely. Just hanging around, said Arthur. I like to spend time in the woods. He said, Me too, said Tim enthusiastically. It's the only place I get left alone, said Arthur, and Tim felt that he was chatting to himself. Ditto, said Tim. What does that mean? Said Arthur, scratching his thinning hair. Oh, I heard it on TV, said Tim. Can't stand TV, said Arthur. I'd rather watch the birds and the squirrels. And Tim could see his point of view. Maybe we could meet later, asked Tim. He needed something to get him through the day, and he was willing to take a chance. After all, he had good vibes about meeting Arthur. He could tell he was harmless but cranky. Yes, we could meet later, said Arthur. He needed a conversation. He could only get so far chatting to the birds. Arthur smiled, revealing his gravestone-like teeth. His teeth need a good clean, thought Tim, but he knew that it was too rude to mention.